Welcome to the Best We Could Be podcast, the space for thought-provoking, fun, and inspiring conversations through millennial voices. I'm your co-host, Eliora.
And I'm your co-host, Danielle. We're sharing and learning about what helps us grow in clarity, skills, and relationships.
We're finding our way to live the best life we can.
And we want you to join us on the journey. So let's get started. Hey guys, welcome back to the Best We Can Be podcast. Thank you for tuning in. And for those of you that have listened to our other 3 episodes that we put out there on YouTube, and also following us on our Instagram page at BWCB we are into episode 4 today. And the topic is believing in yourself, which, to be honest with you, I think it's a very good and valuable topic to discuss, but I also think it's kind of corny. Not saying that lightly, but I just don't know. I tend to find it hard on a weekly basis to believe in myself. Although looking at what I've accomplished so far in my life, I definitely think I have done well in trying to accomplish my goals and still trying to accomplish certain goals in my life. But sometimes it's hard to pick yourself up and keep going. You know what I mean, Eliora?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah, I do. And that's why I wanted to do this topic, because I feel like that has been a roller coaster. Well, a roller coaster sounds dramatic, but definitely like a up and down experience. But it's something that I found like I need to be able to tap into that mentality to move forward in the things that are going to improve my life, that's going to help me to be, who I really am in life, that's going to help me to accomplish the things that I envision. It's not easy. So like when I'm in my flow with it, I see like this is why it's important to believe in yourself, like to boost yourself up, to like pick yourself back up. But just as you said, like on a day-to-day, weekly basis, there's a lot of things that happen, that are blows to us being able to maintain that. And it's not easy. And I think a lot of us struggle with believing in ourselves as much as we would like, as much as we need. So we're hoping that this can be one of our very relatable episodes that, you could get something good from for wherever you're at in the process with that.
Right. And I think when you're someone like me, that's a planner, someone that's kind of type A, someone that tends to is someone that's very ambitious. You tend to forget of what all you've done in the past. And I think it can be hard to remember like, oh yeah, I did overcome that challenge. I did conquer that huge goal. So I think it's definitely good to also sit down with yourself and either write out all the things you've done in the past somewhere, like a journal, or maybe even make a vision board. I know that's something that I plan to do again. I've made a couple vision boards and they, in my opinion, work. Certain things on my former vision boards have come true. So I plan on making another vision board just to help me stay motivated, and also a reminder to keep me accountable to keep moving forward towards my goals.
I agree. And that's something that we'll get into more of, like how the things that we particularly do and, what we would recommend you try out that can help you get that confidence and courage that you need to believe in yourself. But before we get further, how are you feeling overall today, lately?
Well, today I would say I'm feeling pretty good. Thankful for the basics that thankful to have a place to stay, thankful to have the ability to buy food, thankful to have just the essentials in my daily life, thankful for family, thankful for friends. How about you?
That's funny that you said like being thankful, like on the way to come meet up with you. I was having a quiet car ride and just thanking the Most High, just thanking him for just the regular things, like we often, for those of us that pray, a lot of times our prayers can focus on what seems like the bigger items that we want to attain in life. And we don't think about like the gratitude we should have for the practical everyday, like, having some place to live, having your car, and, you're currently not having car issues, or if you are having car issues, like that you even have the means to take care of that you have a phone, that you have a laptop, that You have people who care about you, whether, among your family and friends, that you woke up today.
Yeah. That part.
Yes. Yeah. So I think that's like if you ever want to pray and you're like, I don't really feel like I'm in the headspace to pray. I don't really know what to start. Just start saying thank you for anything that comes to mind. I'm talking about anything. And in the process of doing that, it's funny, like so many things will flood more to your mind. Like, wow, I never thought about like how grateful I am for that, from big to small things. And I feel like that's a great type of, I think we forget, like, thankfulness is a form of prayer.
Oh yeah, definitely. I try to 9 times out of 10 try to take some quiet time before I get into my day, just to reflect, just to pray. As you said, even if I don't have anything top of mind to pray about, once you just start thinking about the basics, like, oh, I woke up today, I'm breathing, I don't have any concerning health issues, I have a car, I have a job, like all those things kind of give you an instant confidence boost.
Yes.
And speaking of confidence, that's definitely one of the qualities that, most people would need to have in order to believe in yourself. So the dictionary version of confidence is to believe in oneself and one's powers or abilities, self-confidence, self-reliance, assurance. And confidence, to me, can also ebb and flow depending on what's going on in your life. I think also that confidence not only relies on you, but I think confidence can also be influenced by those you come across. And also I would say that confidence can be influenced as far as what your family thinks of you, what your friends think of you. Although people say that you should only care what you think of yourself, which is true. But I think realistically, we do care about what, our closer circle thinks of us, like our family and our friends, our close friends anyway. But there are certain people also that you don't know at all, but like you might admire. And if they say something negative about you, then that can definitely taint your confidence in a way. But do you have an example of where you might have lost confidence and had it, Elior?
I definitely think my creativity is something that comes to mind with that. Something I felt without even thinking, just confident in, which I think, a lot of kids are, and then getting older, like having lost that. Just in general, I feel like confidence, when I think of being confident, I think of being someone who owns myself, good and bad, and good including like owning my gifts, like owning the things that I'm good at. We do live in a society where we are encouraged to honestly be very prideful, about who we are, what we have, what we're capable of. But I'm not talking about in a, unhealthy way, but just if you're good at something, like own that, accept compliments humbly. But like if someone compliments you for something that you're good at, like not respond like, oh, like playing it small, like, no, like I am really good at this. I am great at this. And I appreciate that about myself. And I do think confidence affects being able to just like own the areas where I lack, because I know that doesn't define me. But it's something, it points to like how I can improve, how I need to improve myself as a person. And I think a confident person is someone that if you have a good belief in your own power and ability, you're able to cheer for others. I think that's an example of like a trait of a confident person. Because you realize like other people winning are examples of like how you can win.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I also say that, in my opinion, I don't think you have to complete like a huge goal or a certain task to feel confident about yourself. I also think a confidence boost can come from simply you going to get your hair done, or going to get your nails done, or wearing that outfit that makes you feel like you're, a 100. You know what I mean? Just being able to, I guess that's really like speaking to self-care, being able to know that you are valued, that you are lovable, that you are worthy. Actually, now that I'm saying this to myself, how do you feel about affirmations? Because I know there's been a lot of talk lately about, affirming who you are. And I know a lot of people have said to, talk in the mirror to yourself, like, you are worthy, you are confident, you are, strong. And I think affirmations are definitely a good boost, confidence boost for people to do, but I don't know if they're effective for the long haul.
I think it depends on the person. For me, I love doing affirmations. I don't do them every day. I'm the most excited about them when like I've created new ones, and I just do them when I feel like I need them. I try to approach them like making it like a part of my morning routine type of thing. But for me, that wasn't a good approach because, like saying the same thing to yourself, like it could lose like the power that it has, like, which, the reason that you created it for, to pour back into yourself. So I just do it. I do them when they come to mind. I personally like, cause I'm a creative person, owning that about myself. I like to create PowerPoints for my affirmations, like to create a visual like that I'm looking at. That really helps me get into
so
the mindset.
Nerdy, by the way.
I love it though. I love it. But and the thing is, I'm a words person. So for me, like to speak life, like speaking life into others and speaking life into myself, like that is very effective for me when I'm in a space where it's something that I need. So I think with affirmations, like I think the thing with affirmations, which I'll touch on more for in regards to myself, there has to be action behind it. Like you have to see fruit in your life that affirms that these words that you're saying to yourself are real. I think that's one of the ways like affirmations can fall flat. Like we're saying these things to ourselves, but we're not seeing the fruit of it in our life. Sometimes, because we're not doing the things that's going to bring forth that fruit, or sometimes we're not taking enough time to reflect like, oh, you know what, this is true. And it depends on the person. Like I said, I'm a words person. I love doing that. For somebody else, like I think everybody needs to say something positive to themselves because words are powerful. So it may not look like in the form of making affirmation statements, but I think just in general, the idea of speaking positively to yourself is something that we all need. Especially like, we talked about, confidence. It's that belief in your power, in your ability. You need confidence when you need to have courage, because it's easy to be confident when the elements of a situation or the people around us are, supporting that belief in what we can do, what we're capable of. It's another thing to maintain that confidence in the face of some type of obstacle, in the face of some type of danger or like pain that you can go through. That's something that takes courage. So just wanted to touch on that. I feel like a big part of being able to maintain that is the way that we work on speaking to ourselves.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I like the part that you said about there needs to be action behind the affirmation. And I feel like that's what most things in life, especially when it comes to meeting goals. And there's this video that circulated a while back on social media by Denzel Washington. And I believe in the video, he's talking to a bunch of acting students, but I could be wrong. And please not come for me if I misquote this man. But I think in the video, he was saying like, give me a second to think about it in my head. But he said, dreams without goals are just dreams. Dreams, can't really come into reality without consistency and discipline. And that quote or that phrase kind of stuck in my head because like that's so true. Like if I have a dream, it's not going to go anywhere. It's not going to come into real life if I don't really make any action steps towards that dream. A vision board and prayer and all those good things can only do so much if you don't have any action behind it. So I think that, again, going back to just having that quiet time, self-reflection. And for me, as far as when I need a confidence boost, I do like to journal sometimes. So I will write a letter to myself, just to remind myself of, who I am, what I think about myself. And later on, we'll talk about negative thoughts and how to get out of the negative cycle when it comes to trying to change your thoughts, trying to change your ways into more positive patterns about yourself. But I did want to touch on how, just looking back over childhood and growing up, I think that we're more carefree as children than we are now as adults. And I think that has a lot to do because when you're a child, you're still coming into your own. You don't, first of all, let's just say we didn't have social media.
Right.
We didn't really have the internet in the 90s, which is the period when we grew up.
Yeah.
We were more so outside. We were interacting with more people. We didn't really see people unless we made, an effort to see them. Mm-hmm. We didn't, have any way to see what our friends are doing online. We had to actually talk and go make plans to see our friends or family or whoever. We all can agree that social media has definitely been a good thing, but it's also been a bad thing because it has created this facade of everyone's living their best life.
Yes.
Everyone has got it together. Everyone has been able to reach their dream, which has caused a lot of comparison. Like, why can't I be that person? Am I not good enough? This person's doing the exact same thing that I'm doing. So what's wrong with me to where, so why can't I accomplish that same thing? And you just go down this, negative comparison cycle. And next thing you know, you end up just putting your dream on the shelf.
Right. Yep.
So,
yeah, social media, it gives us like constant access to each other's lives that is just not healthy for us to have. And it's hard to avoid if you're seeing certain milestones in progress with other people's lives, to not think of where you're at with your own life. And a lot of times we're thinking about how we're not where we want to be. I think if we took a big group of people, most of us are going to say that we're not where we want to be. And that's at various levels of success. Like when I see public figures, these celebrities, still talking about like, I just don't feel like I'm where I want. Like, you don't feel like you're where you want to be. What are you talking about? Like, you have financial stability, like you pursued like whatever, a lot of times we talk about celebrities, we talk about people in entertainment or sports or even other types of public figures. Like if someone's become like a public figure and maybe they're in a profession like being a doctor or a lawyer or whatever, but like you went after something and like you're making a living off of it. Like, yeah, you seem like you're rubbing shoulders with some pretty influential, worthy to know people socially. Like but we all have a vision of ourselves and of our life that we feel like I just got to get closer to it. I'm not quite there yet. So I did want to touch on what you said as far as like being more carefree when we're kids. Like I feel like this is similar with us. Like we would say there are things that we were more confident in at a younger age, like before other influences got a hold of our minds and in our perspectives. And then over time, like we lost confidence in those things. And now at this stage in our adulthood, like we're getting to a place, particularly like because of being intentional about our, personal development, our self-reflection. I feel like we're going in the direction of getting back to those things that we lost. What comes to your mind when you think of, when I was a younger, child or teenager, I felt like I was more confident in this before a certain mindset got a hold of me.
Mm-hmm. Well, I do want to use an example actually of my youngest sister, because she has a background of theater and she actually also was aspiring to be a voiceover actor. But I will never forget this moment because she couldn't have been more than 3 years old. And my mom entered her into this fashion show in the mall. And, she's a toddler, so you don't expect a toddler to do anything on the runway. Mm-hmm. And so I just remember she had this cute little outfit and she had on this little purse with her, and someone like plopped her on the runway And I'm just like, she ain't gonna do anything. She's a toddler. But next thing I know, this girl is like walking with a strut. And when she gets to the end of the runway, she does this little like pivot turn.
Okay.
Like she switches her head with her purse and she walks back, wobbles back. And I'm just like, my mouth was like dropping. I was like, what? Where did this come from? I did not expect her to do anything. Mm-hmm. And, ever since then, because it was like, one of those fashion show competition things where you would make it to the next level or whatever. And she did make it to the next level. But at the time, my mom did not feel comfortable entering her into that space at her age, which I completely understand. Mm-hmm. But that was like her first moment to me of like full confidence at age 3.
Wow.
And so carefree. And ever since then, she did other things on the stage in theater. And then when she got into college, like something changed. And I think she was relying on meeting like certain expectations from my father and mm-hmm. making sure she's in a career where she can, make an income for herself, a stable career, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that influence of meeting expectations, trying to be successful on top of, her leaving home, going on her own experience was kind of like too much pressure for her. So she ended up kind of starting to leave theater altogether. Mm-hmm. And I tell her this to this day whenever we talk about it. I feel like she's genuinely talented.
I think so too.
And I'm not just saying that because I'm her sister, mm-hmm. but she has this genuine light in her that I think can only be in certain people with that certain talent that are meant for the stage. Mm. And she still does have the desire to go into voiceover work now. So there still is, I guess, that sense of desire in the pit of her stomach where she knows she's supposed to do something within media or within theater or film or something like that. But it's just an example of like, she was so carefree at age 3 years old, getting up on a stage on a public platform in a fashion show, to now, like, when she was in her late teens, early 20s, about to go to college, to totally just feeling inadequate and not feeling confident at all to continue in that same path, that she was on when she was younger.
Mm. And do you feel like what you see in her, do you feel like you see that in yourself? Because I know that you used to do dance when you were younger, and in our older years, I don't know if it's because like you're like, I'm not really interested in dance again, or it's something that you feel like you're like, actually I would kind of like to do that, but I'm like, I don't know about that. But that's just an example that I'm thinking of, like, coming to mind. Like, do you feel like there were things like you had a mindset like you would just go for it, if you were interested or if you wanted it without thinking, and now or going into adulthood, that kind of like started waning?
Well, good question. Well, yeah, I used to dance from age 7 to 15. I believe my mom put me in my first dance class when I was like 4. And then we took a break and I went back in at age 7, and that was some of the best years, of my life to look back on in my childhood. Mm-hmm. I don't remember ever feeling like inadequate or I couldn't do anything, because it was like a community, really, because I had a group of friends that we all danced together. We all would practice together, work on certain dance moves that we probably weren't the best in. Mm-hmm. And also I had great teachers, like teachers that saw potential in me. So that's the other thing too. I think when you're in certain environments trying to get better at a certain skill, you have to have good mentors and good teachers that see good potential in you and pour, good things in you too. Mm-hmm. Of course, there's like what they call tough love and, constructive criticism. Mm-hmm. That's actually constructive and not critical. Mm-hmm. But I think that dance was never, in my mind, meant to be like a long career. It was just a hobby. It was an activity. It wasn't until, and I guess we'll talk about this more later, but it wasn't until I got into college where I felt like media would be a career field for me. Mm-hmm. But I guess with the support of my dance partners and my teachers, I never felt like I couldn't, reach the expectations that they're looking for in me. I hope that answered your question.
That makes sense. Yeah. When I thinking of myself, when I reflect back on myself, I do think at a young age, like at a very young age, I dealt with feeling self-conscious, like not comfortable around people, and that affected my confidence in certain things about myself. But also when I reflect back on me, like kids still have like just a natural advantage of not, because we're not tainted with certain perspectives, that cause doubts and insecurities. We can be more impulsive about just doing the things that we're interested in, that make us feel, like ourselves. So on the other hand, I do feel like I was more confident in things like being creative. I feel like I was more confident in things like my sense of humor, like just being funny and just being silly, and not thinking beforehand, like if it's like, is that going to seem awkward, or is it, not going to land well? Like just being myself, in that way, being more confident, speaking up, like speaking my mind about certain things, and whether it's an opinion or a like or a dislike or like a conflict. Like I was definitely for a lot of people would remember me like being more shy and quiet. But when I was in environments or around people where I felt like I could be more of myself, like I know that was there. And I feel like I let that out more easily when I felt comfortable, more so than when I becoming an adult. It's like me getting to that point of showing certain parts of myself I still see, or I feel like it doesn't come out as easily, even when I'm in an environment where I feel comfortable, compared to when I was a kid. That's what's coming to mind.
So are you saying like you felt more comfortable when you were around certain people that allowed you to be your authentic self?
Yes. And I feel like when I'm around people, I feel like I've been programmed more to second guess. So like even when I'm comfortable around people, I think when I was younger, when I was comfortable around people, like that part of me, like those parts of my personality, creativity, silliness, speaking my mind about something would come out quicker. Like, oh, like this feels safe. This feels comfortable. Like just out there. Where now I still feel like that sense of reserve. Even when I am comfortable around people, I eventually do get there.
Yeah.
So that's like a difference that I see now. And I feel like it's, the experiences that I've gone through that have trained me to hold myself in more. And so now even when I am more comfortable, it's like I have to still like shake that off. Like I could just come out my full shell.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to be vulnerable in general, but I've realized as I get older that I think it goes back to like your close circle, your core circle. Not everyone is close with their families. Yeah. Most people tend to look for their close relationships in their friendships too, or whoever you call family that might not even be blood related to you. But even those in your core circle, you don't always feel the most comfortable being fully vulnerable around for whatever that reason might be. Not that this person has done anything to you directly or that you've done to them as far as you know, but I guess that just goes down to like your connection with each person in your core circle. And if you feel that person is someone that you value, someone that you want to grow into a deeper connection with, then that's something that you can talk to them about. Just be authentic and open with them, and see if there's ways that you can improve in your relationship, or maybe if they've done something to offend you that they probably are not even aware of. Just being able to expand that relationship in a way that you prefer, or, you know, that can grow in a certain way. Or if you don't really, you know, feel the need to do that, that's fine too, because you don't have to be close with everyone in your core circle either. As long as they're treating you well, you know, treat others as you would like to be treated. I think that's what matters the most. But I think I definitely understand where you're coming from on kind of having, I guess you could call it like a vulnerability filter.
Yeah.
With certain people and coming into certain social environments. I know through the pandemic, we've all had our issues becoming more social. Not even like in general, but also on a physical sense too. Being comfortable being around a group of people again. Trying to figure out how to start up small talk again. But I definitely relate to you in regards to being more reserved and quiet, because for the longest time, like, I remember the first experience when I was called quiet and was in middle school. And before that, like, I never viewed quiet as a negative thing because no one ever like brought it up to me. I was like, you know, I wasn't aware that it was something that was out of the norm, I guess you could say. Because I remember I was in 6th grade, I believe, and so I can't remember verbatim, but like someone might have been like, "Why are you so quiet?" And I'm looking at them like, what do you mean? Or some, it wasn't like, "Why are you so quiet?" but maybe like, you don't have a voice. Something about me not using my voice.
An issue with basically you not being this extroverted person. You can't be hype over here, Dad. Like, I'm trying to be quiet as you're talking about like that.
I hit a button.
Please continue.
I hit a button. But that was my first experience. Like, oh, something's wrong with me. Like, oh, I need to become more extroverted. I didn't know that word before, but everyone's talking about introvert, extrovert. But I need to become more loud, more extrovert, more lively to be accepted by these people that I'm around in middle school. So that was my first, I guess, experience of being tainted by outside influences. And that narrative in my head followed me from middle school all the way through college, and something that I dealt with silently with certain people. And it wasn't until maybe a few years ago that I started opening up to certain people in my social circle about how being called quiet made me feel as a child, you know, and carrying that and dealing with that, you know, through my adulthood. And I don't think it's something that people really think about, like, how is that a negative thing? But it's like, but you're also calling it out to where it is a negative thing.
Right. When people say it, they're saying it, they're not saying it as a compliment. They're saying it in the sense of like, why don't you express yourself more? Like,
yeah.
Let me think of my thoughts here. That is something I definitely relate to, because when I realize that I am somebody that's like sensitive to sensing the energy around me, and I realize that more now. I think that's in correlation with me becoming more in tune with my feelings, you know, not being in my head as much and paying attention to having more of a balance of paying attention to how I feel, and realizing like how I am absorbent, to use like a term that sound weird for a person, like for a sponge, but I'm talking about being a person, with energy. And so when I'm in a new environment around people, like I want to feel like I'm trying to like feel like my comfort level in a situation, you know, whether I'm conscious of that or not. So when I show up in spaces, even now, a lot of times as an adult, which I don't think is an issue, somebody's first impression of me would be that I'm quiet or that I'm reserved. And that's not all of who I am. It's just like I'm just kind of observing like the environment that I'm in. I'm just getting a feel for like who I'm around, like, you know, what's going on.
Right.
And so when people encounter me in that way, and times where I've had people, you know, refer to me as quiet or reserved or shy in a negative way, it made me feel less comfortable showing them the parts of the side of me that's not like that.
Yeah, good point.
Like people like already speaking a perception that they have about me.
Right, yeah.
And times that made me like, it like overshadowed the perception of like what I know myself to be. And what particularly, adds to that, not just I realize that people have this perception, but when I've been around people who think that's most of what makes up who I am, and I am myself in a different way, like, I'm more loud, or I'm more like, I don't know, like whatever they may perceive as more like cool or like fun. And when people make comments that draw attention to, like, okay, like I didn't know that you were like, it makes it like, okay, now I don't want to do it. Now I don't like it.
It
because
exposes you in a way that feels uncomfortable.
Yes, it's like exposure is a good word. And I'm trying to like figure out like how to put it into words, because this plays into that idea of like believing in yourself. Like those type of experiences made me pay more attention to what other people are thinking of me more than what I feel about myself, and what I like about me, what I'm good at, what I'm capable of. It's like people speaking of it in a way like, I guess like it's whatever side of me that they see that they weren't used to, like it's something like that's unnatural to me, or they see as unnatural coming from me. And that has affected my confidence level in a way, like, okay, I thought that this was just me being me, but somebody else is perceiving this as like, oh, like you're like getting into this side of yourself. I didn't think you were too good at that.
Yeah, and like it never existed before.
Yeah, and
that you're trying to change yourself in a way to satisfy them,
or even something like that. Like I'm not. Yeah, sometimes it could even come off like is it being said in a way like I'm not being authentic to myself. Like this is me. This is just like those. There are different parts of me that can be contrasting, but they're both authentic to me and they exist.
Right.
So yeah, those have been different things that have affected my confidence level, as well as like, when you do go for certain things that you want and the outcome doesn't come out the way that you want. Like, if you just, when I was in school, like doing performing arts, like had a lot of experiences with, putting myself out there that I didn't show up the way that I thought, the way that I envisioned it in my mind. And speaking to like what we were talking about earlier with affirmations, like when you don't see the fruit of the things that you are wanting to speak into yourself, that you want to believe in yourself, it's going to affect your confidence and courage to continue to go after certain things, because now you're developing more of a narrative. Like, I don't think I'm as good as I once believed that I was.
Right. And I think that from these experiences of people kind of basically, I don't know if the word is making judgments or assessments of who we are based on our personality, but I think this is a definite, clear experience of something that probably stands out to us, that we feel we've changed and been able to prove to ourselves that, we are more than just, reserved, because we're not also saying that being reserved or quiet is a bad thing. It's not. But it just seems like in this society, people that tend to show up first as being reserved, aren't necessarily accepted with the masses, with those that are more lively or more outgoing. But I could say for the both of us, in the last few years, decade or so, we have both become extremely outgoing. And I know I've definitely become more social, because I tend to be, as I have been called, the director of friends, getting people together at get-togethers and whatnot, making sure people are socializing. But I think that once we get those triggers of when people make certain comments, we, I guess, have to talk to ourselves, like, don't take it personal. Like, you know who you are at this point. You know what you have been through. You know that this is just your personality. This is how you operate. I think also that people are now starting to understand introverts, starting to understand extroverts too. And for my opinion, introverts only show their extrovert self when they're comfortable around you. If they are kind of to themselves, they probably just don't feel comfortable to open up.
Yeah. And that could be for a variety of reasons. Sometimes, let me not say that. Let me not say a good amount of times, 'cause I'm really trying to think, like, is that always the case? So it's a different thing. Sometimes, like, I just don't know you like that yet. I just don't know you like that. And I don't know if I want to show up in this way. Of some people, like, I'm, going to be as I am no matter who I'm around. I'm not like that. I feel like certain parts of me are things that are special to me to, like, share with people that I really connect with. And then also I'm trying to figure out what type of person you are. Like, I don't want you to gravitate towards me too much. If I realize, like, I don't like you too much. And so I'm not really trying to share too much parts of myself that's going to make you like me back too much. 'Cause I don't really think I want to, be connecting with you in that way. So, so there's that aspect. Like, I just don't know you like that yet. And then there's the aspect of, I have seen enough of you and I don't like you. And I don't want to show up this way with you, because I'm not feeling like the parts of you that I see, and I would like to maintain a certain level of distance and interaction with you. But something that you said in regards to, as you were talking, I thought of the aspect of when I think of those experiences for me, it's been having to learn to be less impacted by people not affirming back to me who I know that I am. Being able to be myself, even if it's something that people don't believe about me. Right. I know this about myself and I believe this about myself.
Right.
And having my confidence being more internally sourced than externally sourced, which I didn't think, was something that was happening to me, has been significant in affecting me being myself, even though I will still show up in place. And that is me being myself. Like, when I show up more reserved, because I'm, like, just trying to figure out what's going on. And then even when I show other parts of myself that people may not be as used to, I'm going to be that regardless of how other people respond to it.
Right. So, mind you, we're on a podcast.
Right.
We're both definitely showing our extrovert sides right now, trying to push past our reserved sides, because this is not something neither of us would have thought we would be doing, a decade or so ago.
Right. That's absolutely true.
So we are definitely exposing ourselves to the public.
So what comes to mind when you think about struggles you've had with comparing yourself to others? Like, do you have a particular memory that you feel like, I think, like, from this point, like, the snowball, like, started happening in my life, where I was, like, looking at what other people were doing in comparison to myself, or just even in general, like, significant things you could think about where it has been a struggle, like looking at where you're at or what you're doing compared to what you're seeing from somebody else?
Yeah, I went through that recently, because I, in 2019, started my own freelance videography company, which I'm not going to say the name of, because I actually want to change the name of my company. But it's a labor of love. It's something that I'm continuing to build in and grow. But if you're interested to see my portfolio and my work, feel free to look me up on Instagram at DannyP_filmme. But basically, I decided I think it was sometime last year, to invest in a program that would basically help you enhance your videography skills, photography skills, etc. And I was able to meet, a plethora of other photographers, videographers, etc. It was really a great way to kind of motivate me and get back in the game, because I kind of have been on and off with videography the last few years. But I believe that this is a talent that I'm supposed to really develop in. But I found myself kind of questioning my ability when I started to see other of my peers that were better than me, or had, been doing it 10 years consistently, and I've been trying to do it on and off for the last couple of years. And also just kind of being intimidated by the way that the industry has changed And I mean industry as far as videography, promoting yourself on social media, having to do all these different things, posting every day, putting yourself on camera, which is something that I'm still trying to get used to. I'm still getting used to hearing my own voice through this podcast, but also when you're for social media, for most businesses, not just videography or media, but you have to kind of expose yourself again on these public platforms. And that's just something that I am trying to be more comfortable with.
Yeah.
But not just that, you have to be consistent in promoting yourself and making sure there's new content, making sure that you're engaging with your followers, et cetera, et cetera. And I just got overwhelmed. It was just a lot. And I found myself having a moment, and I didn't know it was imposter syndrome, but I was experiencing all the symptoms of imposter syndrome. One of the definitions of imposter syndrome is individuals experiencing imposter syndrome often believe that they are not capable or deserving of their success and have somehow managed to deceive others into thinking they are more competent than they really are. I was just having a moment where it's like, I don't know if I can do this. What am I doing? You know, I can't accomplish X, Y, and Z. Like, this is not me. I'm, trying to be this person that I'm not. It kind of shocked me because back in 2019, I was fully confident, fully ready to dive in, make my own company, work with these business owners and make videos for them, and go all in. And then a couple years later, the industry kind of changed in the way that, because nowadays, every person you walk into is on YouTube or doing something on social media or in the media field in some way. So the market is saturated. So it's like, well, how do I fit in now? Because I feel like there's so many other people doing the same thing. But I've come to realize that if you are in media, whatever that looks like for you, you have your own audience and you have your own uniqueness to you. And that's what I'm telling myself as well. I have my own audience. I have my own uniqueness. And once I find my rhythm and once I find the pattern that works for me in regards to my own marketing, social media, et cetera, I can have my own system and feel confident in moving forward in the way that I want to move forward and try not to get caught up in how other people are doing their business or promoting their business or doing their videos or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
There's another part of it too with myself creatively where I realized like, I don't even know if videography is my passion anymore. And I don't know if that has to do with outside influences or not, but I think it also made me realize to redefine truly what I want to do in media. Because through doing this podcast, which I love, it's also made me think like maybe I need to go back to certain passion projects I've had in mind for a while that I really need to refocus in and not put all of my eggs in one basket when it comes to videography and just kind of rotate that. I don't want to put all my focus in videography, and I want to try and experiment and try new things like this podcast is what I'm trying to say.
Like wanting to test out your skills and talents in different areas of media.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, that makes sense. And that's if you're gravitating more towards that, I think that goes into like you being more of who you are. Maybe you zeroed in on videography, like you genuinely like videography, but there's that. I do feel like that's becoming. We are seeing that more in our society, like people who have various interests and how they're building up like different avenues for the things that they're good at. But I think the long-standing approach of how to do life that we've been trained to do is like you choose one thing and you focus on that and you keep like chipping away at it till you get to some level of success. But everybody isn't like that. Some people they may switch up what their primary focus is every couple of years or maybe shorter periods of time because that's how they are. Yeah. So and especially being a creative, I think that makes a lot of sense. Like we're more fluid in the way that we are to be a creative, to me. So I think that's really good that you're opening yourself up to do that. Yeah. Just talking about that area of work life and discovering your thing professionally and establishing yourself. That is definitely an area of life where I've experienced comparison, like, seeing people, I think, yeah, you touched on this earlier, like seeing people who are doing what you want to do, in whatever way, and them really winning at that, and, looking at myself like, man, I have not, reached a certain level with certain goals that I have. Like for myself, I left employment work to pursue freelancing in copywriting and editing. Like I said, I'm a words person.
She is a great writer.
Thank you so much, Danny. That's something that I've had to affirm, back to myself, like my skill set in being able to write creatively and effectively and in a way that gives a positive influence that can get results. That's especially the point of copywriting. You're trying to get people to take action with something. And when I first was developing that, like even back, like let me step back to like when we graduated, the earlier time after we graduated from college, I remember like that idea of working for myself, or just taking more a certain initiative to carve out what my path in communications would look like. Like that's what my career is in. When those ideas were coming to me and like talking, it's times where I encountered people, whether it was through like, networking activities or like, meeting somebody who knows somebody, and, having that conversation about like what their journey had been, like the things that they did, that progressed them to that position of, either working for themselves or just having more, like our professional journey. Like people talk about this concept of like, operating in a way where life is like just happening to you, or you operate in a way where you make life happen. And so that's what I'm speaking to is, when it comes to work, a lot of us can like go through that experience of having jobs where it's like life is just happening to us. Like we just kind of, our main goal is like we're just trying to find something that's gonna be that we're good enough to do, that we can make money off of, and there's not really much more intentionality other than that. Like, what do I want this area of my life to look like, this area that takes up so much of my life, called work? Like, what do I want my experience to look like in that? So just talking to people who it seemed like they had more of that going on for themselves, I remember feeling like more nervous about that. Like, I don't even know like where to begin. Like I'm like, okay, I'm hearing how this person went about this for themselves, but like, what does that look like for me? Like, what's going to be the process of like me developing my own thing? Like, how do I like market myself to people? Like, how do I structure my services? So, having those types of experiences, like in the earlier years after college, and then getting to a place some years later where I was at my last employment job, like I'm really starting to have more of a vision for this. Like I can do this. Like I'm gonna take the leap, and I know that this is not the type of work route that I want to go, that this is something going into freelance / contract work, like this is something that's gonna better suit me. And so, I took the leap into doing that. And along the way, as you're trying to learn, right, you're more attentive to other people who are on that path themselves, like looking, for people to give you advice, just content that you come across more often because of what you're looking up, and you're seeing where other people are. And then for me, like as I'm going along my journey, seeing like, wow, like I'm proud of myself for making that decision. But man, this other person, like they seem like they're just more, they just seem like they're better at business, like they're more business savvy, like how to win in this area. They just seem like their content is so good. Like, man, like I wish I had thought of doing some type of content like that for myself, putting stuff out there on your socials, like to market yourself, or just knowing how to find like the right opportunities to connect with certain people who are going to be beneficial to. I found myself, as I'm learning along the way and looking at other people, a lot of what I'm encountering is online, but even also like people who I've encountered in person, it definitely has been a struggle at times, like comparing myself, like, am I good enough to like really reach this level, you know, pursuing this type of work. And then especially from the time I took that leap, you know, it's been a couple of years, and to see people who started out doing whatever their thing was around that time, you know, whether someone I encountered, you know, from online or that I know in person, like seeing where they're at now and seeing where I'm at now, that, you know, adds to that even more, that comparison, like, wow, like I'm not at that established level myself. So can I really do this? Like that adds to it even more.
I guess a good way to kind of get out of that comparison cycle is to, first of all, take breaks from social media.
Yeah.
Because all you're going to see on social media is everyone's highlight reels. Everything's going great. Life is perfect. That's all you're going to see. So if you're in a place mentally to where maybe you're not feeling the most confident, or maybe something negative is going on in your life, maybe take a break from social media and take that time to do some journaling, or maybe try something new, a new activity that you haven't done before, just to kind of reflect on, you know, things that you like doing, things that come naturally to you. Also compare yourself to yourself. Like, what have you done in the past that you were more confident about, that over time you've probably been tainted by outside influences that now you're not confident about in your life currently? Or even compare like, oh, I totally forgot I did that huge, you know, goal back then. If I can do that, I can definitely do this now. Because my background consists of media production. I've also worked in the film industry, and I've been a part of big budget films. And looking back on those experiences, which I somehow, some way forget, I think to myself, like, wow, like I was around these type of people. Like I had the confidence to walk up to these crew members. Like, you know, in the film world, I think it's getting better as far as, you know, man to woman ratio, but there's usually more men on a set, you know, older men. So if I'm walking around as this young female trying to get questions or sometimes give demands depending on the situation, I got to appear confident. I got to come in with a purpose. I can't come in being all vulnerable and shy. Like I got to speak up. I got to make sure I speak with confidence. And going through those experiences definitely helped me elevate to a certain point, to become more outgoing, to become more social, to speak up for myself. But I think that's something that we need to do, is compare ourselves to ourselves.
Yes, I agree. And speaking of like, you touching on the social aspect, like, because, you know, we're talking about elevating professionally. Do you feel like when it comes to who you are socially, like, you know, how, you know, apart from the work stuff, like that has been an area where you've had to learn to, like, that you've had some bump in the roads, like comparing, trying to say that word right, yourself to other people in that way, like how you show up socially versus like how you may see other people show up socially
in the professional world?
No, outside, apart from work.
Yeah, like going back to, I guess, you know, socially in general, just being around a new group of people. And like you said before, like if you show up as more of a reserved person, then they put this like magnifier. It's a magnifier, right? Is that the right tool?
I know what you're talking about.
It's a magnifying
glass.
Yeah.
Like, let's say it like that. I know what you're talking about.
Anyway, they put that magnifying glass on you and like put the spotlight on you. And they're like, oh, like, why are you not as lively as everyone else? Why are you kind of more reserved? Why aren't you talking? Why aren't you? So it's just like, can I just, you know, exist and be who I want to be, you know? And I honestly think that reserved people have more of an advantage, because you can get to assess like, okay, this person acts that way, that person acts this way, this person talks about that person behind their back, this person doesn't talk so fondly, or the way they speak is, I don't think I could be around. You know, you can just kind of make your own internal assessments instead of kind of immediately exposing yourself, being loud, being lively, which I love, you know, my extroverts too. I got extroverted friends, but Yeah, I definitely have had those experiences of feeling like because I don't show up first as a lively, outgoing person, I kind of felt like alienated in certain social groups at times. Yeah. Not, of course, not talking about my current social group now, it's totally different. But growing up, maybe through dance or through different extracurricular activities in high school, I kind of felt like, I guess the best analogy is like you're the last one picked for the kickball team or whatever. So I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, that makes sense. Especially that last part you said, like about being the last one picked, like that idea, like people don't see as much value in you as a person in certain social settings, and comparing yourself to people who like, oh, they're more of, you know, people's choice or who people gravitate to. I think that I definitely notice people who own themselves when they're in social setting. And that could be in whatever way, not even necessarily like being extroverted, even people who they are more quiet and they just own that. But they know how to present themselves in a way where their value shows up, and people, you see the response from how other people interact with them. Like, this is somebody, like their presence is valued. I've definitely been in situations like from childhood, teenage years, and even as an adult, where I feel like the way that I showed up the outcome wasn't like people reciprocating back the type of value that I see in myself, that I would want other people to see in me. So yeah, when I think about like, okay, when I'm around other people and feeling that, times when I felt that way about myself, it has made me, you know, pay attention, like, okay, you know, what is it about this? Like, okay, this person, like, you know, shows up really well in this way about themselves. And in examining myself, it's made me either think about those qualities in me, like, okay, where, you know, I want to be comfortable in myself when I'm in certain spaces to be this way about or even if it's something about that person that it may be different from me. That's what's coming to mind now. Like, sometimes comparison, it's not, it could be an unhealthy thing when we're beating ourselves down about like who we are, you know, in comparison to another person, like just constantly thinking in the mindset of how we're not measuring up. But sometimes it can be a useful thing in making us reflect back on ourselves. Like, if comparing ourselves to somebody else is making us feel a sense of being less than, then what is it about myself that I want to work on as far as like how I show up in a certain area? So I've like learned to more so turn that mindset into kind of being like more inspired or motivated by how a person is. And that's helped me to show up better, like as myself. If that person is sometimes if we think of it in terms of like, okay, if that person is doing that, that's something that I can also do, like, you know, and being willing to try that out for myself. And I feel like that's what's helped me to show up in spaces like where my sense of humor is coming out, you know, earlier than maybe it would have in the past, because I was more so, you know, second guessing or, you know, thinking of how other people may receive it, or, you know, me being more opinionated in certain environments, because that is a natural part of who I am. I think a lot of times we'll find like if we show up as ourselves more, there's something about like being who you are that I think over time you will see like it bears more positive fruit in your life than negative. Because things respond more positively to you, I feel like, over time when you're being true to yourself, as opposed to like if you're trying to, if you're not being yourself, if you're holding back parts of yourself, or you're trying to show up in a way that's more so how you've seen somebody else show up and not really being you.
That's true. So I guess I want to transfer over into what things have we done that we are proud of ourselves for. Mm-hmm. Some of the things that come up to mind for me, which is not related professionally, but I recently went on a solo trip to Chicago, and my solo trips, mainly like when I travel, I do know people already that are in these states, but 90% of the time I'll be by myself, staying by myself, exploring by myself, and we'll meet up with these people while I'm there. But Chicago was my first big city trip that I had not done for a while. And I was nervous because I come to find out that Chicago had a whole train system that I had to use from the airport, because it was I tend to use YouTube as a reference when I'm traveling solo, just to know like other activities there might be to do in the city, what to explore that maybe tourists don't know about. And I was very intimidated by the train system that they had. But come to find out, it was quite easy to get on the train from the airport. And then on top of that, having to get an Uber to get to my Airbnb, and et cetera, et cetera. But I kind of find out one day when I was just walking by myself around the city, like I really embraced that time of just being to myself, not having to worry about meeting someone, not having to worry about if the person that's with me, you know, is also enjoying their time, or if they want to go and do something, having that be a part of our itinerary. Just kind of having your own carefree itinerary, I think, is really valuable in solo trips. And although I do enjoy, you know, group trips, I do love traveling with my friends. But I think that, especially for women, whether you're single or married, I think that going on a solo trip is definitely valuable to help, and could be another way to kind of reconnect with yourself, and also expose you to new interests, things that you probably wouldn't have time to think about before. Because when you're back at home, you know, you get back into routine, you get back into your job, or you get back into your career, or if you're married with a family and a husband, you get back into the routine and everyone else's schedule. So you kind of like get lost in the noise of everything else going on. But taking yourself on a solo trip can kind of give you that time to, you know, go somewhere where you're going to have fun, where you're going to have time to really just enjoy a new area, a new environment, and who knows, maybe even meet a couple new friends that you come back and visit before. And I know, Eliora, that you've gone on a few solo trips yourself. So would you agree?
Yeah, because I think when it comes to believing in yourself, like the more you make choices that authentically resonate with you, and you're open to making decisions that, you know, can involve some form of risk, that's gonna help you get to know yourself, which is what you need, you know, to believe in yourself. So like being willing to like do things on your own, especially things that people would normally think of like, oh, I wouldn't want to do that by myself. That's something you're supposed to do with your friends. That's something you're supposed to do in a group, like, you know, going on a trip. No, that's something that for you to be able to, one, it shows that you're comfortable with your own company.
Yeah.
You know, like it feeds into that aspect of you liking you. Like a lot of times, like if we don't like to do stuff on our own, it can be connected to the fact that we don't really feel good about us. So, you know, we like to be around other people to kind of distract us, you know, from that. Like when I've done solo trips, like I believe like that part of me stemmed from just wanting to explore more, just being a person that explores more of the world around me. That came about in a time of my life where, as I started doing them, I haven't done one in a while, but that came in a point in my life where I just certain life experiences like just made me feel like more confident about myself in general, like just being more self-reflective and self-aware. And I did them for my birthdays. Like, you know what, I want to go take myself, you know, on this experience. So, you know, I chose like the places that, you know, I particularly wanted to visit. Most of them I hadn't been to before, and choosing like, you know, this is the place that I'm interested in going while I'm here, having this experience. And with doing that, you know, that was even tied to like me trying out, I'll talk about this more at a later time, but like trying out car life, you know, if you've seen people on YouTube do that, like when I did those experiences. And then even in the area where I live now, what I learned from those experiences about myself is I am good at being independent. Like I'm able to be self-sufficient. And even when I'm in situations where I don't have certain accommodations that we would normally like to have to be comfortable, I know how to make a way out of no way. And I think that's knowing that you can do that, like that's something that's very significant in building up your confidence and believing in what you're capable of. So I really enjoyed doing those trips. I really enjoyed trying out like those car life experiences for myself to show like, you know, that I'm able to be out in the world on my own and enjoy myself and be okay.
Yeah, and I definitely encourage anyone out there that's thinking, male or female, that's thinking about taking a solo trip, definitely do it. I would definitely recommend to make a plan and don't just buy a ticket and go out there, because every city has its different rules and, recommendations. But it's definitely something that I think will elevate your mental health in a positive way. Also something that can help you gain confidence in yourself as well, to know that you can take on new things with by yourself without having to have a support group around you to do certain things. I think is very helpful. Yes. And I also want to shout out to the both of us as far as being able to do a podcast.
Yeah. Yes.
This has been a labor of love, and we are very grateful for those of you that are taking the time to listen to us whenever we have an episode out or supporting us on social media. But this is not easy. No. Being able to come together and use our resources, technology, editing, everything in between. This is only the first part of what we do for the podcast, is record the episode, but there's tons of other things we do after we record to make sure that we're staying relevant, to make sure that we're coming up with creative and appealing things on social media to interact and appeal to our listeners. So, it's something that I think we need to acknowledge to each other that, this is something that we should be proud of, that we decided to do.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like branching out to try new things is really important, because when you can look at your life and be like, wow, this is something like a few years ago, or how, at whatever time back, I wouldn't have done this before. It helps provide, it's like a measuring stick to you of your growth. You're doing something that at one point in your life, something would have held you back from that. And especially when it's in regards to something about yourself, it's shown I'm more confident in this area of my creativity, or I'm more confident in this area of my independence, more confident in me being able to make decisions, for myself. And I don't have to consult, somebody what do you think? That's something that we don't think about, especially I think as women, we can be so communal minded and wanting to bounce ideas off of each other that we can lack in building up that ability. I can make choices for myself for things that I like to do, and I don't need somebody else to affirm or approve that's a good idea. So I definitely agree, starting this podcast, it's not easy to go into any type of creative endeavor, because you have a vision for how you want it to be, but you don't really know how it's going to work out. But even when you try out something and we have a vision for how successful we would like this to be, but even beyond reaching a certain level of success is, as far as how many people you reach, just the fact that we're even doing this, we even had the level of discipline and creativity and perseverance to even get to an episode 4. I feel that plays into those lessons that we're learning in life, that help us to remind us who we are, what we're capable of. For myself, even as well, when I'm proud of myself for making the decision to leave the 9-to-5 employment route, because that decision came from me being honest with myself. As we're getting to know ourselves, it's we get clarity about who we are and how we are authentically, and what the best version of ourselves would really look like, what life would look like for us. I feel oftentimes we get those in pieces. So for me, this was a piece of my life, recognize what, I'm not somebody that fits in this type of structured environment when it comes to the whole 9-to-5 work route. I want to do work that gives me more flexibility with my time. And yes, that does come with less stability in your finances at a certain stage, but I know that this is more true to who I am. And I want to take that risk in figuring out what does life look like for me to pursue this type of work. And when you're doing that, to if you want to pursue freelance or contract work, you got to know what your skill set is. You need to know what you're good at, because nobody's handing you a job. You're presenting yourself to other people with what you have to offer and why they should hire you out, right? You're not an internal person on their team, why they should hire you out for whatever it is that you provide. So me getting to that place of even feeling I could do that came from experiences of growing in the workforce. being in situations where I had to be responsible for things, where people are entrusting certain responsibilities to me, like, okay, I was able to accomplish that. I was able to reach the goal that was entrusted to me. So if I can do that, then I can do this other thing. And that eventually led to like, okay, if I could reach this certain level of, doing well, working for somebody else, this is based off of my skills and talents, I could take it even further and take this leap. Like I want to do something where I'm going to work for myself so I could be more in control of my time. So, that led to me starting up what my business calls Spread the Good Communications. And it's
which is a great name.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And it's been an on and off journey getting clients consistently, but I am grateful for the projects that I have had, because those are reminders to me, like, okay, if I hadn't have done this, I would not see these, get to experience these types of wins doing this, to show myself like, I am capable of doing this. And it's something that I want to continue to build up. And I still will do admin support work. That's the employment work that I left, but I got back into that, doing it virtually, because I'm like, okay, you know what, this is something that I'm good at, that is helping to fund other things that I'd like to do. And if I hadn't to take that leap to leave, like being in an employment arrangement for work, I don't think I thought about like, oh, this is something that I could do remotely. This is something that I could do contract wise, like that will give me the flexibility that I want. But because I made one decision tied to like me believing in myself, it led to me discovering this other way that I could do this type of work, admin work, that resonates with what I want for my life and helps me to be more of who I am, like, because I'm getting to spend my time more the way I would want to spend it day to day, even though it's still work.
Right. And I think in today's age, a lot of people are taking ownership of how they want their lives to look when it comes to it not being taken over by a 9-to-5.
Yeah.
But there are also people out there that, they're okay with the 9-to-5 job, and they don't want to work for themselves, because it is a lot of work to keeping up your own business and putting yourself out there and making sure you're consistent with your clientele. But it's also worth it because it leads to financial freedom. It leads to, because you're in charge of your financial stability. You're not dependent on a company that might, God forbid, lay you off without you giving any notice, or you putting in work in a company for 10 years plus, and next thing you know, there's an email saying that you've been let go, and then you giving your all into this one job, so you're like at this standstill where it's like, well, what do I do now? And depending on your life, you might be providing for others, other family members, or who knows, whatever your situation might be. But being able to work for yourself does provide more options. It does provide the ability to be more fluid in how the job market changes. And then also you have the option to go back into the workforce if you want to. And you can also, there are people out there that also have a day job and work for themselves too. So there is a way to have best of both worlds, although it will come to a certain point, depending on whatever your entrepreneurship business is. There will come a certain point to where you do have to make a decision to leave your company in order to give your all into your business. Because especially if you're one man, one woman show, and you don't have a team, you might get to that point to where you have to make a decision like, okay, like, what do I really want to do? Like, yes, this company is giving me a stable base of income, but I might have to take that risk and just set myself up to be able to give my all into my business so that I can turn this into a stable form of income. And I know for me, what I'm proud of myself for is that if I see an opportunity that makes sense for me professionally, socially, maybe even romantically, I tend to take it. I don't usually take too long to take a risk, whether that's investing in a certain program to enhance my media skill set, or going for a job opportunity, or being a part of a new activity. For example, when I was living in my apartment, I found a dance studio around the corner. And as we mentioned before, I used to dance from age 7 to 15. And I was like, you know what? I kind of want to integrate a new activity into my life, a new hobby. So I decided to sign up for a dance class. And, in the class, like, I felt like my younger dance self naturally came back to me. I was able to pick up the steps naturally, able to move fluidly. And I was proud of myself for just stepping out there and trying something new. So I think that's something I'm proud of myself for, is just being natural at trying something new. Although, of course, depending on the thing that I'm trying to do, I go through highs and lows with trying to accomplish it, but I tend to naturally take risk and try new things just to see the potential I have to make the thing happen. But speaking of dance, I know that you also you've recently taken up salsa classes.
Yeah, like in learning more about myself, I brought this up multiple times, but there was a point where I, like, when the term, like, calling yourself, I'm tying it to this, like, calling yourself a creative was becoming more popular. Like, I remember thinking to myself, like, would I consider myself a creative? Like, I don't really know. Like, I'm good at doing certain creative things. I have good creativity, but like identifying, like, no, I am a creative being. I remember like feeling a sense of hesitancy about that. And so when I got to a point where, like, I want to own that part of myself, when I really started paying attention to me, like when I'm in situations to create something, whether it's for work, putting, some type of something that is communicating information, that's part of the role that I'll have, like doing admin or, executive assistant work, helping to relay information. When I put together something creatively, or, when I've done that through my copywriting projects, and of course, now having this podcast, like really paying attention to myself, like that was really good. Like it takes creativity to do that. Like, and, I haven't, shared this, more openly, but like even writing songs, like for myself, I am a musically inclined person. Like I'm always like,
she has a voice. She can sing.
Thank you. I'm always like, thinking of some type of tune, like just random melody, and I'll like record things. And as I, really started paying attention, and that's part of like reminding yourself who you are, is paying attention to yourself, like the things that you gravitate towards and the things that you do, and doing activities that like feed into those parts of yourself. So as I started, with the combination of those things, it got me to a point of accepting, like, I am a creative, like, and I like exploring like different forms of creativity. When it comes to like performing art kind of things, I initially gravitate towards music and singing, but I also enjoy dance. And so that was when I was thinking about that, more like I want an outlet, like to explore dance. And then, also with that, well, men and women, dance is also a good way to explore your sensuality. And I was feeling like that sense too. Like I want to feel like more in tune, like expressive, like through my body. And I started looking like, okay, where can I take dance classes just in my area, just seeing like what was out there that would resonate with me. And I came across salsa dancing. I know what salsa dancing is, but particularly finding a place in my area that, oh, I like this place. Like they have, a diverse group of people that go. It looks like an environment that I can be comfortable in. And I decided to try it out. Like, I started off, doing the group class. I've done the one-on-one classes before, but mostly I do the group class. And I'm really glad that I stepped outside of the box, in a sense, for myself to try this learning this style of dance. And it has reminded me, like, again, like of my creative side, like my ability to gravitate towards things that where you have to be willing to be open and fluid and willing to learn something new in order to, bring about this, in this sense, this form of dance, which is something creative. And then the way that you have to approach this style of dance, you gotta any style of dance, but like you got to show up in there confident. It is it's often like a fun and flirty dance. So you have to be comfortable tapping into that side of yourself, especially, you're dancing with a partner in order to make the dance like fun and engaging. It's something that you want to do. And so I'm proud of myself for doing that. I feel like that's definitely been a fun thing that I've branched out to do, that's reminding me of certain parts of myself that make me feel good about me, especially my ability to like try something new and to grow at it. I'm definitely still at the beginner level, but from where I first started from, like not really knowing it at all, to the comfortability I have now, like I'm capable of developing like this skill set, and that makes me feel good about me.
Yeah, I'm also proud of myself in regards to being able to socially bring people together. I tend to take initiative in trying to think of events or coordinating with my friends to get people to do a trip or have an event at a house and invite people from different social groups of mine to interact and meet each other. And I know something that I'm also proud of myself for is, putting myself out there romantically, putting myself out there socially when it comes to intentionally wanting to make new friends. For example, I've been working remotely actually for the last year or so, and it was my very first remote position. So I didn't know how that was going to affect my social life, but I turned to Meetup to just see what types of events were going on in my local area, and also a way to expand my social circle. Because I know people always say I'm not looking for new friends, but sometimes your normal social circle changes. People's lives don't really allow for your friendship to always be consistent, which is, life. So I wanted to start to expand my social circle to find new people, new friends. And I've been able to meet a couple new friends through Meetup that I'm grateful for, that I probably would not have ever met if I didn't put myself out there on the app, go to these events and just start talking to people. And, when I was younger, that probably would have never been me. I never would have been that person that just signed up for an event to go to with a bunch of strangers, or was the first person to break the awkward silence sitting at a table with people that you don't know. I tend to be one of the first people to get people to start talking when it comes to small talk, which I'm proud of myself for doing. And I think that's just from experience of being in certain situations where you had to push myself out of my comfort zone. And through those experiences, that has allowed me to start to be okay with speaking up, start to be okay with the reserved side of me, and also the more social, outgoing side of me. That has led me to come to a place to where I'm accepting my whole self. And like you said earlier, which I think was a great expression, was you're starting to become internally sourced and not externally sourced. And someone told me also recently that I had been living, how did he say? I think he told me I had been living outside in instead of inside out. So to me, that he was telling me that I have been relying on the influences and the opinions and thoughts of others in my external circle, not talking about my core circle, but just those that I interact with externally, and not really doing enough work on myself internally on what I think about myself and what things I have accomplished and what I'm capable of to overcome whatever external source that is challenging me in a way that would make me belittle myself. So just being able to reflect on in ways that I've grown as a person is something I'm definitely, extremely proud of.
Yeah. And I would say, speaking to like the shyness that I've experienced from a young age, just having a hard time sometimes like getting comfortable with people, that definitely affected, how I showed up in conflict. Whether, being faced with direct conflict or being in situations where I felt like something was wrong and being able to speak up about it. In me wanting to become more of myself and having life lessons that have affirmed to me like who I know that I am, and that being more influential on me as opposed to, other people affirming or not affirming that to me. That has made me more confident in the part of myself that I am a person that I don't easily back down from conflict. I realize like that's more of my natural.
She's ready to fight.
I've never been in. Well, I mean,
that's
sisters, we've fought physically,
that part,
but
yeah.
As far as like being like that person, like that kid in school or the kid in the neighborhood that would just be, getting out here and fighting, that hasn't been me. But I would not be afraid if somebody were to attack me physically. Like, I'm gonna defend myself. But speaking more so like in verbal a confrontation, I realized like I feel like that the journey of like believing in yourself is really getting back to who you already are. Like getting out of your system the things that have been imprinted on you that separated you from being like what's actually more natural to you. And so like I'm not like a person that's ready to fight, but if something is wrong, I feel like that natural inclination like to speak up about it. Or
I'm sorry, I'm chuckling because that reminds, I feel like the both of us are, like you said, when we recognize something's wrong, we're okay with bringing that issue to attention to said person. And that reminds me of a time in college when we both had the same issue with a certain friend. And we invited her over to our apartment, sat her down, and told her, you know, what the issue was, and she did not receive it well. And yeah.
And in that situation, it was not even a combative approach. And that's something to say, like, addressing conflict, it doesn't automatically mean like being combative or aggressive. It just means like there is an issue and you have a level of comfortability, like, hey, I'm going to speak to this. And sometimes it can get aggressive and you have to discern, are you willing to also go there? And if you're gonna go there, like, is it for a right reason? I don't have the mindset like some people. I don't really understand it, but some people like have a mindset like, I guess they have like a fear of like anything ever like being aggressive or combative. And I'm like, a lot of change, good change that has happened in the world, it took that in order for it to happen. So
That's
you
true.
can't fear like things taking it, you know, a situation going to that extent. You just have to have some discernment and wisdom, like, is it worth it in this situation? Because sometimes it's not. But yeah, I'm proud of myself of being more of a person who won't back down from conflict if something needs to be said. That's normally how I try to measure it. Like, is this something that needs to be addressed? Yes. Am I going to enter into conflict doing this? You know, it looks like it, but that's that I'm not going to let that be more important because something here is more important that needs to be handled. So times when I've done that, definitely part of that fear was like the negative perception. When if you're having some type of conflict, you know, from the outside looking in, people can have a negative perception of you. And I've had to learn through my experiences of like, okay, what am I feeling in myself to do here, to not let that dictate my decision. Not like that people's input I don't consider it at all.
Yeah.
But if I ultimately determine like, no, this needs to be handled, I'm going to follow my instinct and not be true to myself or what I think is right because of the negative perception that it may cause. And then I also think what affected me in not doing that, like, I'm not like, my sister has put it like this, like, I don't live my life comeback ready.
Yeah.
Like, I am not like a person that, like, I have had times where people have said certain things to me and I was really caught off guard by it because I'm like,
like, did they just say what I think?
Yes,
they said?
like, I don't live my life like, but I've realized that I have from certain experiences that has kind of developed into me, like bracing myself for like certain type of negative responses that if I had not had certain experiences, I don't think that would be in me. So even still, what I'm speaking to is putting myself in a situation where like, oh, like, am I going to be able to maneuver myself well in this? Like, this is going to be confrontational, but, you know, am I going to be able to handle myself? But by me making the decisions to follow my instincts, to follow my gut in times where I felt like I needed to speak up, that has been how I've become to learn and train myself, like how to hold my composure, how to handle myself if I'm choosing to enter into something that's going to be some type of conflict. And that is me being true to the person that I am, of wanting to have honest conversations, of like, if something is not right, addressing that it needs to be corrected, or being comfortable like expressing myself in ways that are not, it's not always like a positive conversation. I'm proud of myself for that. And I would say that one of the biggest things I'm proud of myself for is my spiritual path that I've stayed on, and it's been ebbs and flows with it. I am a person that gravitates towards things of the spiritual, and I realize, like, I mean, I believe that we all come from a spiritual source, but some of us have more of an interest in understanding that aspect of our existence than others. And I feel like that's the way that I've been designed. Like, I just have a natural inclination, like, to understand those types of things and to want to live my life according to the principles that I believe are from the creator of all things, like the Most High. And that has definitely caused, you know, experiences in my life where, you know, I've been looked at as strange. I definitely know in my first job out of college that definitely affected my social interactions there. I didn't start off on the spiritual path that I'm on now, and then that developed while I was there. And, you know, certain things that I was okay doing before, you know, I didn't want to participate in anymore. And I had to learn to stay true to myself, even though that was costing me whatever, positive reception I was getting from people before.
And that's something that I admire about you. Like, we do have similar spiritual beliefs and values, but your willingness to stick to it, and forgive me if this is the wrong term, but I feel like it's also a sense of being okay with being alienated. And that's something that I'm not yet fully accepting of. This just the way that my life is set up. I value social community, et cetera, et cetera. But I think that's one of the things that I value. That I admire about you.
I appreciate that, Danny. And a big part of my spiritual journey has definitely been with Danielle, and it's not easy to face certain situations where you could end up like being ostracized. Like, I love people. I want to be around people, but my faith encourages me that me staying true to how I'm being guided will lead me to connecting with people who are more compatible with me. And I'm able to stay true to my spiritual path, as opposed to me compromising that just to gain more of the favor of people. So that's something that I'm proud of, being true to myself, because in a broader sense, it does. And my belief is based in scripture, the whole Bible as it applies today. And that can often put you in situations where you are separated and alienated from the larger social group that you may be in because of how you're choosing to live your life.
Right. But also, like you said, you find the right group for you. So even if you do have different beliefs, and, when it comes to spirituality and also other topics like politics, it's very, very sensitive. It's very, very personal. Yeah. So if you just have I think you just have to come into it with an open mind. If you see a person that's changing in a certain way when it comes to their spiritual beliefs, or if they're voicing an opinion about their political beliefs, you just kind of have to understand the root of where they're coming from, and also come with knowledge and a source of knowledge, and not just hearsay. But I think that comes down to people just accepting you for who you are, as long as it's in a state of respect and kindness. There's a way to exist when you're not necessarily along with the social norms of society.
Yes. Yeah, I totally agree. Like all these things that we're speaking to, it has to do with making decisions, and that often involves some level of risk of being true to yourself, so you can have more experiences of positive outcomes when you're true to yourself and what you're capable of, who you are. That will help you to believe in yourself. If you play it small in life according to your insecurities and your doubts, and especially the perceptions of what other people think that you should be doing, it's going to hinder you getting to a point where your sense of confidence, your sense of courage is something that is deeply rooted within you. And to accomplish anything in life, you have to be able to believe in yourself. Even if you believe in a higher power, oftentimes we disconnect that, like, oh, we believe in this higher power, this, right, it's a supernatural being that can do all things. And then we get to a place of disconnect in understanding, like, okay, that supernatural power that you're believing in, if you have that belief, empowers me. I am capable of doing so much more than a lot of times I even give myself credit for. So you have to be able to own yourself in that way. Like, no, I believe in me, and I'm going to make choices that make me feel good about me, that resonate with me, that help to feed into that quality of believing in who I can be and what I can do.
Right, exactly. And I would like to move into the part about overcoming negative thoughts when it comes to gaining that belief in yourself. And I know with me a few years ago, I really struggled with negativity, like negative thoughts. It was pretty easy for me to go into a spiral. I mean, to this day, I still have, negative spirals, but now I have more of the tools. I'm more aware of the tools I need to do in order to get out of that negative spiral with myself. And one of those tools is, for me, journaling. And I was able to invest in a life coach last year. And one of the exercises she encouraged me to do was literally write out every single negative thought that you have about yourself, anything that comes to mind, and then write a positive thought to combat that negative thought and read it back to yourself, read it out loud, or, write it in your journal, whatever works for you. But for some reason, once you like speak to that negative thought or say it out loud and then combat it with a positive thought, it takes away the negative thought's power, because I don't think we realize that our mind is, another muscle. It's another big organ that influences a lot of our decisions, especially what we think about ourselves. So being able to do that work on your mindset on a daily, weekly, monthly basis is very, very important. The small thoughts that come through your mind, whether it is, I'm not good enough, I'm depressed, whatever it could be, just taking that time to, if you don't want to journal, definitely reach out to your circle of trust, as I like to call it, your family or friends, or someone that is someone that you can be completely unfiltered with, and being able to be heard by someone I know is definitely very, very valuable. Just being able to know that you are seen, being able to know that you are not alone, especially because I think a lot of people, especially our generation and Gen Z, we're definitely bringing up like mental health matters. Going to therapy is essential. Any traumatic experiences you might have had when you were a child, or experiences that you've had, going into adulthood, are things that are worth bringing up to the surface to talk through and heal from. And I think that negative thoughts is also a root of healing that we probably need to still do and work on. And I feel like healing is always a never-ending journey with certain things, especially if you don't receive closure from certain things. It's always going to be a continual journey. So being able to, for us, we have that source of the Most High that kind of reels us back in.
Yeah.
when we feel like we're unraveling, we tend to go to prayer first, or scripture, or our circle of trust in our family or friends. But other people, it could be simply, because I know for me, when I get into a funk, I just go on a walk. Like I go outside, I go into nature, I walk away from my phone. Because for some reason also, I feel like when you're in nature, you're just reminded that everything's going to be okay. I don't know how to explain it, but nature is just so consistent and so simple and so refreshing that you're just reminded like, oh, this issue is not really that big, or at least it distracts you from the issue for a little bit when you're on a walk. And you might not even really have an issue, but just, walking in nature is something that can definitely elevate your mood and help you to just take a step back from it all and kind of give yourself a little boost from whatever could be bothering you. And also just incorporating other activities to make you feel good, like we talked about earlier, affirmations like Eliora mentioned before. Also, depending on what you're dealing with, it could lead you to reflecting on your circle and people that probably don't need to be in your life any longer too. So
yeah, speaking to the things that Danny said, like especially like reaching out to your circle when it is true, I believe that we should be, our sense of confidence, it should be rooted internally. But it's important to have community because we go through things in life that disconnects us from that foundation inside of ourselves. So you want to have good relationships with people who really know you like that, also speaks to like having people in your life, like you have meaningful relationships with. It's not surface level, like they actually know you.
Right.
So when you're having a hard time believing in yourself, when you're having a hard time, like being fearless in the pursuit of something, believing that you can accomplish it, those people in your life that really know you, they're going to remind you of who you are because they know you. They're going to, be that voice outside of yourself that speaks to the things that you're capable of. They're going to feed you so you can start feeding yourself properly again,
right.
Which is, ties into the importance of having to remove people from your life, or, maybe it's more like of a distancing. You need to put distance to people who, whatever your negative thoughts that you tend to be prone to, it's important for you to know that so you can know the type of people that you would need to stay away from because you're trying to overcome that. And I think in touching on that people may think of like those who are intentionally like, putting you down or like saying negative things to you, saying slick things to you. But sometimes it's not always that. Sometimes, people like being negative just of themselves, like maybe about their own life or just, the way they perceive
trauma dumpers.
Right. Or the way that they perceive the world around them. They're not intentionally trying to do anything to you, but it is affecting you with negative thoughts within yourself. And you have to be able to set some type of boundary to not be around those types of people. Like, hopefully they go through whatever their process and overcome that. But all you can control is your process and trying to minimize your negative thoughts. And with the life that we tend to have in this society, so much of it, as we know, revolves around work. And then if you're a parent, you got the kids. But it's important to fight for, because a lot of times it feels like a fight, making room to do things in your life that remind you of who you are, that make you feel good about you. Like I said, like, doing salsa classes for me, that's something I feel good about. I feel good about doing this podcast with Danny. Even getting, when I do copywriting projects, like reminding me, like they're part of me stepping away from that had to do like me having to like get clarity about like how I want to approach it, in a more beneficial way. And then also like with doing certain projects, when I have writer's block, I'm like, am I really like a good writer? Like, I don't know about, but when I get projects and I do well, like still being open to accepting projects for that line of work and reminding myself like, I am a good writer. Like, this is good. Like, I can do this. We have to make room for those types of things, even down to like our clothes, like, okay, what does that like have to do with believing in yourself? Like when you look at yourself and you feel good about you, I do believe that affects your mindset of what you feel like you are capable of when you go out into the world, because you like how you feel, how you look, how you step out into the world. So whatever that may look like for you, Danny mentioned, self-care, like the things that are more personal. Maybe nobody knows that you do those things to take care of you, but it feeds into that aspect of you feeling good about you, because this is all like a mindset thing. You want to feed yourself and preserve a mindset within yourself that allows you to receive good things about you, to help you to believe in yourself. And lastly, Danny touched on this. I did want to say, especially with us being people of faith, when it comes to praying and, for us reading scripture, reading the Bible, if you're a person, who is a Bible believer, it's important for that foundation within yourself to be connected to the high power that we believe in. Just like we were speaking to the people in our life who remind us who we are, the creator of all things is like the ultimate source to remind you, like, I'm the one that made you. Yeah. I'm telling you like who you are and what you're capable of. So things like praying, to have that line of communication, as we refer to with the Father, is important, so the Spirit can speak to you, like that still small voice that combats those negative thoughts, that quiets those negative thoughts that rise up, and reading the word that is already written, that's already telling you who you are. And I would lastly say like fasting. I know that's something that, a lot of us as believers, like, I don't want to like, not have food. Let me tell you something. Subduing your body so you are more clear spiritually, when you are doing it with intention and not just abstaining from food, but you have an intention of how you're going to incorporate more of the word in your life, how you're going to remove certain things from you during that time to feed your spirit. Sometimes the negative thoughts that we're having are very affected by spiritual battles. And I like true. How I've heard people put it, like, fasting is not about, which I've thought of it like this, like trying to get the Most High to give you something, like you're trying to get something from him. A lot of what we're trying to get, like, I've already given it to you. You need to come into alignment with me to receive what I've already handed out to you. And that's what fasting can be very helpful with, like to clear you out spiritually, internally, so you can come back in tune with who the Most High says that you are. And I believe for a lot of people, that may be the answer that you need to incorporate that will help you to combat, some negative thoughts you're having.
Yeah, that's very true. And also, if you're new to fasting, if you are a Bible believer, if you're new to the faith, welcome. But I'll also encourage you to get an accountability partner. Yeah. If fasting is a new activity to you, definitely call out to someone within your community, within your church, whatever it might look like, that can keep you accountable, that's done it before, that you could check in with, because physically it could be hard in the beginning, but it definitely is a very rewarding process. You feel closer to the Most High. You feel stronger in a way after you get past, the whole hunger episodes. You do feel like more empowered. You do feel more confident. You feel like you can conquer the world after you're done with fasting. And it definitely is something, that is spoken highly of by those in scripture, the Most High, to do in order to get to know a higher version of yourself. So that fasting is definitely something essential to those that are of faith and in that community. So I guess to close things out, we are just going to reflect on emphasizing some of the gems that we've dropped when it comes to believing in yourself. And just to remind you guys that we're all human. Every day is not promised to us. We all have our different issues that we're going through, whether people know about them or not. And I think I would like to say, to let people know that you're not alone in thinking low of yourself. You're also not alone in maybe even not knowing what the heck you want to do.
Yeah.
Because we change over time, not just as far as what we want to do professionally, but also, there's change involved in romantic relationships. There's change involved in friendships. So just being able to, I would say, just be patient with yourself. Don't be too hard on yourself, and find whatever works for you in regards to your spirituality, in regards to how you find peace, how you're able to recharge, how you're able to get that boost of confidence. As long as it's not hurting others, as long as you're not hurting yourself, I think that the best thing to do is to take care of you. That's one of my things.
Yeah. And remember that believing in yourself, it's levels to it. So I know I've dealt with this, and some of you could probably relate, like when you feel like you've arrived at a certain place. A lot of life is cyclical. So there are a lot of life lessons that we repeat in different ways to make us stronger. Like you go through the experience again to see how you deal with it at this level. And so don't feel discouraged if you maybe at one stage of your life, like got to a certain place, like, okay, I'm handling this well. And now you're at a new stage in your life and like you're having a struggle, like with your confidence or being courageous. Like that's okay. It's a growth process. It doesn't mean that you're backtracking. It oftentimes just means that you're at a new level and having to be challenged in a new way. So that sense of believing in yourself and being more fearless can be stronger, can be more deeply rooted. Yeah, just pay attention to yourself and receive what other people who care about you, people who are good people, like maybe if they don't know you like that, but this is like, don't listen to negative people, but pay attention to yourself and people who care about you, people who are good people in regards to what they see in you and what you see in yourself.
Yes.
Because that's going to help guide you in the things that patterns, as I like to say, pay attention to those patterns. That's going to help guide you in the qualities that you have, your character, your personality, certain skill sets, certain just talents, just like when I say talents, like kind of like God-given things, like that you don't even have to work towards. You're just good at it to a certain extent. Pay attention to those things because they'll guide you to more things in your life to take hold of that you are good at, that will help you to believe in yourself. And that doesn't mean that you won't have failures. We're all going to fail at something, but I believe that we will experience more wins and losses the more that we gravitate towards the things that best resonate with us or are true to us. And even when we fail, it's something that's going to help us because we're learning throughout the process. Like, okay, that wasn't so bad. I've learned something from this. I just got to pick myself back up and get back to the mindset the best you can to believe in yourself.
Yeah. Once you go through like a breaking period, whether that's heartbreak, losing a job, losing a friend, losing a family, whatever that looks like for you in the sense of loss, you definitely go through a period where you not only work on healing from that situation, but also you kind of turn into a different person in a way that makes you stronger. I don't know why Christina Aguilera's Stronger song just popped in my head. It's just, but you turn yourself into a person and another version of yourself that's stronger. You feel more equipped to take on whatever the next challenge might be. You find out different things about yourself that you didn't know before. And also you reflect on the past and whatever happened in that situation, like things you're not going to tolerate going into the next, challenge that you might run into. So I think that also failure is effective, it's essential. And we've definitely heard about many well-known people talk about failure and how they went through 1,000 rejections before they got their first yes, and how they didn't even see value in themselves. But, these people are like, as you would say, some of the elite people out there, but they decided to take a chance on themselves. They decided to, like, you know what, let me just give it a shot. Let me just try. So at the end of the day, I think what matters the most is that you just try whatever that looks like for you, whatever that means. Just try, because you never know what you're capable of.
Yes. So thank you all so much for listening, and we really hope that you just get something, as always, from this that really makes you think and is able to help you in your journey when it comes to this topic of believing in yourself. Absolutely like, share, and subscribe.
Yes, please.
Yes, on YouTube and our different platforms where you'll find us. You can go to our Instagram page at BWCB Podcast, and also our Facebook page, and see our Linktree for where else to find us. Spotify, Amazon Music, and so forth. So thank you all so much for listening, and we will see you guys next time.
Thank you. See you next time.
Bye.